All right. Hello, business owners. I am getting everything going here. I'm going to pull this up on my phone too so I can see who's joining us and all the comments. I hope all of you are having an amazing Tuesday. I feel like Monday was like a really long day. Am I the only person who thought this? I had a freelancer of mine message me this morning and be like, whoa, it's Tuesday. I just kind of thought Monday rolled into 2 days. So I would love for if you're on with us, shoot me a comment, say hi, hello, so I can see who's joining us here. Turn off my sound. Yeah, I would love to say hi. We're going to chit chat for a couple of minutes before everybody jumps on, before we dive in. I have kind of just a short presentation for you today about visual language. Hey, Stacy, good to see you. Yeah, it's not a super long presentation today. So if you have questions that pop up as I'm rambling and talking, like go ahead and throw those in the comments for me so that I can just answer them in real time. And then if we wrap up really early, we can do some Q&A at the end. And you guys know how my Q&A works. We can talk about anything during that time. It's just, I'm an open book most days. So say hi if you're joining me, if you're jumping on. Man, today in Oklahoma has been so windy. I don't know what the weather's like where you're at, but whew, it has been crazy windy here. And I'm just kind of ready to stop listening to the wind through my window. But excited to wrap up the workday. It's been great so far, but just going into the evening always sounds like a great idea. So if you're joining me, say hi. Stacy, I hope you're having an awesome day. Thanks for jumping on. I'm going to stay hydrated as we talk today. Oh, I know what I could show you guys. So I decided to play with resin projects. I have water all over this. I decided to, during quarantine, I made sure that I had some sort of creative outlet because creative minds, every mind, I believe, needs that, but especially creative minds. When you've decided to turn what you love into also the thing that makes you money, I'm a firm believer that as a creative freelancer, you have to find other ways to find an outlet. So my outlet used to be to throw elaborate dinner parties. And if you've been to one of them, they're really fun. But I used to make little menus and tags. And I was like the first person to volunteer to throw a friend a baby shower because I used to get so design heavy and elaborate about it. But anyways, when quarantine hit, I decided I was like, I need a new creative outlet that isn't that, because obviously we're not hosting dinner parties. And I decided to start playing with acrylic paints and resin paintings, thanks to my friend Chloe, who introduced this to me. And lately, a couple weeks ago, I decided to make a coaster set. I have one of them here in my office. Look how pretty this is. I'm slightly obsessed with it. So this is one of four, and they're all different shapes and sizes. They have this beautiful blue resin finish, super shiny. We painted the edges so they look a little geo. And yeah, I get really excited every time I walk in my office and I'm able to sit a glass on that coaster. So sometimes it's the small things that really just get us going. So I would love to know if you have found some sort of creative outlet during this like time of isolation. I would love to know what it is. I've heard from friends that are reading or coloring or doing random art projects or projects with their kids. So I would love to know about it because I'm always looking for something else to kind of like stretch my mind in a different direction. I've also realized that when I'm trying to solve a problem, even if it's an analytical problem or a creative problem, when I kind of take my mind out of that problem for a little while and work on something with my hands, it's often that by the time I'm wrapping up that project or in the middle of that project, the solution to the problem I'm working on will just smack me in the face. So I love doing creative projects for a multitude of reasons, but that's definitely an added benefit that I kind of walk away with a solution to something that my mind's been kind of working through. Yeah, so if you're working on anything fun, I would love to know about it. We're about 6 minutes in, so I think I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Obviously, if you didn't catch this live, I understand you have a business and you have a life. So no big deal. You can always watch the replay later. So whether you're catching me live or you're watching the replay, I would love for you to throw a comment in the comments so that I can be sure and interact with you, because I really do try to go back to all of those comments and respond to everyone who's posted, and make it very fun and interactive. It's also a great place to ask an additional question that maybe I didn't cover, because I will pop into the comments and give you the answer to that question. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And bear with me because I have a love-hate relationship with Zoom, but I'm going to share the slideshow that I put together for this. And, you know, it has to go through like 3 different share screens before it'll do the right thing. Whoop. Okay, back over here. Perfect. Okay, so today, obviously, the topic of conversation is your brand is speaking a visual language. Do you know what the heck that is? This is a question that I get asked often, is like, does my brand convey what I'm wanting it to? Well, let's talk about that for a second. So if you followed me for a while, you probably know that I believe graphic design is so much more than just making things look pretty. Hey, Shannon, thanks for jumping on. I'm really excited to go over this information. I hope you do learn something today. Okay, so I believe that graphic design is so much more than just making something look pretty. Graphic design is actually a form of a visual language. So this language is communicating who you are as a brand, and it's important to businesses that we're communicating the right message to our potential customers for a multitude of reasons, right? We want to make sure that they truly understand what it is that we're doing at the end of the day, but also we want those high conversions so that whenever they land on our website or on our social media threads, that they're walking away knowing exactly what it is that we want them to understand about our business. So smallbizgeek.co wrote an article that I was referencing for some of this talk about graphic design and visual languages. So in it, they referenced a few things that I felt were really helpful, super compelling. So I want to share those with you. First, they said that graphic design is a visual shorthand created and manipulated to communicate an idea or a message. I love this. I love that they described it as a visual shorthand, because it's so true. And as much as I believe that words are so important for your brand, you guys, seriously, I use freelance copywriters for almost every client that we work with here. I believe that the words that you put into your marketing message are so, so, so important. But there's also something to be said for the first impression, the quick message that your customers see when they look at something that you're putting out, right? And so this often happens with the visual elements that are there. So the visuals tend to grab somebody first, and then they make the decision that they're on the right site, that they're on the right thread, right? And they're going to dive deeper into the message. So I believe that it's really important that we grab them and we bring them in with these visuals that drive home the right message. And then you continue to follow up with really great words, with really great nurturing, in order to convert them into a raving fan. That's what we all want, right? We want those people on social media that are just saying, oh my gosh, you have to work with this business. That's ultimately that word of mouth, fire type marketing is what we want. Okay, so they then said in the article, which this shouldn't surprise you, but the human brain processes imagery 1,000 times faster than written words. We've all heard this, right? A picture's worth 1,000 words. But this is why I feel like tapping into design as a visual language is very vital to your business. 1,000 times faster, can you imagine? Can you imagine if 10 people saw your social media post today, right? We're going to start with some low numbers, but 10 people saw your social media post, and each of those 10 people deciphered the message that you were putting out 1,000 times faster. That could be huge. That could be huge for the recognition of what you do. That could be huge for your bottom line. And I say all the time, guys, we're in business to actually do business, to put money in our bank account at the end of the day. And even if you're a nonprofit, you're here for a reason. There's a conversion that you're looking for. And 1,000 times faster could be huge for you. So I believe that the design should be there to enhance the understanding of the core content and the message that you're trying to convey. So this is exactly why a few years ago, we changed our whole approach at Oaks Creative House to projects. And we decided to put the written content first as top priority. And then we use the visual elements, and a lot of the ones that I'm going to talk about today, of graphic design to bring that message to life. So what we've done is, instead of saying, let's make it look good and then let's throw in some words here, we're really drilling down that core content. And then we're saying, now the shorthand language, right, is graphic design. So those are the pictures and the elements and the icons and the colors and the fonts and all these things working together, but they're actually creating the shorthand message that's going to grab somebody's attention. But we want to make sure that those messages mesh. We want to make sure that those messages at the end of the day, between your written and your visuals, are putting out the same meaning. So unless you're somebody like me who spent 4 years studying this and 10 plus years putting it into practice, I actually did the math the other day, 15 plus years. Ooh, I'm not sure I'm ready to be that age yet, but 15 years putting it into practice for many different types of businesses. How could you know how to communicate visually in an effective manner? So this is why you're here, right? The good news is that you have me. So I'm going to break down what I believe are the top 5 elements of graphic design and why they're so important in order to fit your visual voice for your brand. So what are those 5 elements? So the 5 elements that we're going to go over today are the line, color, space, fonts, and hierarchy. And you may be looking at this list thinking, some of those are really basic. I don't need to know any other information about that. Or you may be looking at different pieces of it, like, what the heck does she mean by that word? Right? It can be a little bit confusing to say, how does this translate to great marketing at the end of the day? I'm going to connect the dots for you. Bear with me for a little bit. Also, if you're just joining us, feel free to post a question in the comments at any time. I'm glancing over, keeping track of the comments, and I am happy to answer questions on the spot. And we may have a little bit of time at the end for Q&A too. Okay, so if you're thinking, this first one is the line, and if you're thinking, wow, Crystal's over here taking it back to basics, you're completely right. You will almost always find a line in any form of graphic design. And this could be from printed brochures to website pages or social media graphics. A line is an important foundation of your visual language, but I'm here to tell you also that lines are not always obvious. So it could be the edge of a shape. It could be implied lines created by negative space, like what you see here on the slide, or even lines that catch your eye, lines that your eye creates when looking at a photograph. So even this triangular point of the pencil in this photograph, those are lines, and they're drawing your eye in a certain direction. So sometimes it's important to think about not just the literal implementation of some of these elements that we're going to talk about, but the implied implementation that you see. So a lot of times I'll hear, well, I picked this picture because it looked good, but they're not actually looking past just the surface level of the picture to see what feeling is this creating. So lines are everywhere. Lines are in icons, they're in fonts, they're in graphics, they're in pictures, very important. But let's talk a little bit about what emotions those lines provoke, right? So a curved line can suggest comfort and ease. A horizontal line, I love this one, suggests distance and calm. This one's easy to remember because how calming is it to look at a horizon, right? It's like that vacation on the beach kind of feeling. So it can suggest calmness. A vertical line can suggest height and strength, which is why you see a lot of the times, maybe financial institutions, places like that will use a lot of vertical lines in their branding. This is strategic, guys. It's not just there for fun. Okay, and then the last one is that a jagged line can suggest turmoil and anxiety, or sometimes even play. So why would you ever want turmoil or anxiety in your branding or in your marketing? Sometimes there's a reason for it, right? Sometimes you're hitting the nail on the head with the problem that your clients are facing. And sometimes this jagged frustration, this turmoil and anxiety in your marketing can bring out the right feeling in these potential customers, and then you slide in with the solution. So they're used very strategically a lot, but from the surface level, if you're DIYing your marketing or your design, I just think it's really important that you understand at least the high level meaning of these elements that you're using. Okay, so what about shapes, right? Lines make up shapes. Yeah. Um, Squares and rectangles can portray both strength and stability, which is why you see them a lot in corporate marketing or graphic design from big corporations. Circles and ellipses can represent continuous movement. It's almost like this being drawn into something that's continuing to happen. A triangle can lead the eye in an upward movement, which is really great if you're talking about ROIs or projections, those kind of things. If you have any sort of data to back up what you're saying in your marketing message, triangles can be great to drive that home. But on the opposite end of that, inverted triangles can create this sense of imbalance and tension, right? You look at this triangle on the screen and you're thinking like, oh, it could just topple at any moment. So you're creating this tension, which may be what you're going for, but if not, then you may want to stay away from something like an inverted triangle. Okay, so let's move on to number 2. And like I said, if you have any questions, go ahead and pop them in the comments for me and I'll loop back and answer those for you. So color. Color is arguably the most important visual element that you will ever use in your marketing, branding, graphic design. So we're influenced by color in our environments every single day. Your brand's colors are no exception. You'll see a lot of people who specialize in branding using their colors often to drive home the same message. Even the fact that I'm wearing green in this presentation is not by chance. That's very purposeful, and you'll see on the next slide what green actually means. So we use color to set the atmosphere. This element goes into the heart and soul of your company, which I'm also going to say, if you don't know what the heart and soul of your company is yet, maybe you need to do a deep dive in that area. It's very easy for some of us to pull colors and meanings out in what we're putting across because we've done the work to say, these are the values that my company carries, and this is the message that I'm wanting to put out. But if you haven't done some of that heart work for your company, then this may kind of fall by the wayside. You may want to take a step backwards and start there. Okay, so let's talk about colors and the emotions they evoke. So look over this list as I go through it and see, does your brand use any of these colors? Pay close attention to the emotion that they evoke and think to yourself, is this an emotion that I actually want my customers to be feeling? Is this the experience that I want them to have? So if you've watched me before, you might have heard this exact same thing, but I'm very big on repetitive content to drive a message home. I think colors are really important. So red can be passionate, aggressive, or important, which obviously is why you see it on things like stop signs. Yellow can be happy, friendly, and it can also serve as a warning at times. Blue is serene, trustworthy, and inviting, which is why you often see it in like the medical area, the medical fields. You'll see blues and greens, which is on purpose. Pink is feminine, young, and innocent. Black is powerful, sophisticated, and edgy. Gray is neutral, formal, and can sometimes be kind of gloomy. Orange is playful, energetic, and I'm sorry to say if your brand color is orange, but cheap comes up often. Green is natural, stable, and prosperous. I told you we were going to talk about green. I know that I'm giving a presentation to business owners, right? This is strategic. I'm wearing green. There's green behind me because we're thinking about how do we do a better job at bringing people in, which actually means money at the end of the day. So stability, prosperous, all those things are intentional. Purple is luxurious, mysterious, and romantic. Brown is earthy, sturdy, and rustic, and white can be clean, virtuous, and healthy. So if you didn't see your brand's color here on the screen, because obviously I just pulled a few examples, you can do a quick Google search of the color that you're using plus the word emotions, and you'll usually find the feeling behind your brand's color scheme. Now, I also want to note while we're on this topic that if you are doing work internationally, different colors evoke different meanings in different parts of the world. Actually, in some parts of the world, red can even be more of a calming color, where black can be a warning sign. So it really is important for you to do the research and to think about who your customer is at the end of the day, and if these colors and emotions are things that you actually want them to experience. So as I've said, I think color is very important to what you do, and it's not just about personal preference. It's not just about things looking pretty, but it is actually about this subconscious messaging that you're putting out at the end of the day, and making sure that it actually aligns with what your company wants to be putting out. Okay, so on the topic of color, I also wanted to touch on tone. So tone is the contrast between light and dark, which is used often to signify importance in various elements of your brand. So what do I mean by this? You can use tone either in a dramatic way or in a tranquil way, or you can hit somewhere in between with that. So you can see in the two pictures here, the one on the left, we're using blues, which are calming colors, right? But the way that they're used paired with this red and pink, and they're very saturated and they're very vibrant, they create this dramatic look, right? That pop off, that ivory color can really create a drama in what you're doing. But in the same sense, blues are used on the picture on the right too, but they're all in a similar tone, right? They're all in a similar lightness or darkness, which creates this kind of even kilter, and it creates this tranquil feeling for your brand to put out if that's what you're going for. Okay, so Stacy says, red and yellow simulate your appetite. Yes, you're totally right. McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, Burger King logos. So never paint your kitchen those colors. That's so good. I actually so pay attention to how colors affect my environment too. It's really important for me to make sure that colors are in my space that make me productive, and things like, yeah, not being hungry all the time while you're sitting in your kitchen. But so many people don't realize, it's such a good point, Stacey. So many people don't realize because this happens subconsciously. But now as a business owner, you're switching from consumer, which is driving past a McDonald's sign and be like, French fries sound good, right? Now we're switching to producer, which means we're the ones making these decisions in our business. And it's important to make sure we're making the ones that make sense for the message that we're putting out and the customers we're reaching. Thanks for commenting that, Stacey. I love that. Okay, the next one we're going to go over is space. So I'm going to be really honest with you that space is one of the hardest things for even very studied designers to understand. I give critiques to freelancers and young designers all the time. It's part of my daily routine, and space is often the thing that I'm giving feedback on. Space takes years of experience to master, but I do think that it's important for you to understand. So the best way I can describe the emotional impact of space within your designs is very similar to the difference between walking through a very crowded store like Walmart or a high-end clothing store. So let's see here. Obviously, now with this slide, we're in Walmart. So in Walmart, you're in sensory overload, right? There's so many things to look at. And even though they do have a structure in terms of different departments being in different areas, and even like seasonal items being in bins or out in the aisles, it can feel very overwhelming to stroll through the aisles of a store like this, right? Walmart's not the only one, but it's a great example. So I read while doing research for this that most Walmart stores have 120,000 items on their shelves. That's a lot to decipher in your mind. So obviously in the physical area here, there's not space, right? We don't have space in the Walmart brand. And this rolls through even to their ads, to their website, to everything that they put out. It's very compact. It's very crowded. So on the flip side of that, imagine that you're walking through a Chanel store in Milan. So this example actually came to mind because I was able to experience this on our honeymoon several years ago. I'm like, how long have I been married? 5 years ago. We walked through a lot of these kinds of stores in Milan and it was amazing. But Stephen was definitely not impressed by the price tags. I didn't buy a whole thing, like anything the whole time that we were there. But the experience of walking through these stores definitely leaves a lasting memory, right? It's an experience for sure. Just like walking through Walmart is an experience, but they're two totally different from each other. So in a store like this, there are only a few of each item out on display. They keep all the back stock in the back, right? You get one purse to look at and you say, hey, do you have this in black? Then you could ask for it in black, or you need a top in a different size. They're going to go to the back to find that for you. So they create this space where there's lots of room to move around. There's plenty of mirrors so that you can like hold up and see what it is that you're looking at, which also makes a room feel bigger by using mirrors. There's aesthetically pleasing like countertops and design aspects, accents and lighting throughout the whole space. And this space, like what we're looking at here, just creates this breath of fresh air, right? So two totally different ways to use space, but you can see that each of them evoke their own feeling for you as a consumer. So let's take these examples back to your brand. So how are you using space in your brand? Is it a cluttered mess to look at? Or are you giving your viewers a bit of breathing room as they decipher the content that you're putting out? So I love this website screenshot from Beats. You can obviously see here that there is plenty of space. If you didn't know this, your eye typically moves in a Z pattern. So in this instance, we're going from the red B logo in Beats to the actual headphones, right? To their face, to the headphones. Your eye is moving in that direction. And when it comes back into the Z, you're looking right there at another red button that says buy on Apple. So it's important to know that even as you're doing something like a website layout or a social media graphic or a freebie that you're putting together, that the space that you're using around these elements is very important. So one thing I wanted to share is that typically the more space that a design has in it, the perception is that that brand is worth more. So if you right now in your DIY designs are really struggling to even pull the investment from your customers that you feel that you're worth, that you feel like you can't raise your prices and things like that, space could be a great way for you to tiptoe into that arena that you're ready to work in. And it's definitely a way that you don't have to be talking about Chanel prices. You don't have to be talking about that you're so expensive. But I wanted to show those two very different edges of the sword in order for you to get an idea so that you could find your own middle ground. The perception of value changes depending on the space that you're using. So Stephen knows that I love to look at any of the junk mail that comes in if it's really bad or really good. If it's mediocre, it just goes straight in the trash. But he brought me this one the other day and it was like smaller than a 5x7 postcard. And there was so much text on this one postcard, front and back. And to give you a little bit of an idea, I want to say that maybe half of the type size was in 6-point font. To give you an idea, a Bible is printed in 4-point font. So you're talking about just a little bit above, a little bit bigger than what a Bible's printed in. And I immediately looked at it and was like, what am I looking at here? There's so much going on in this one postcard. It's so overwhelming. But what I realized is that was on purpose. This postcard came from a bargain place, right? It came from a place that's known for closeouts and very cheap clothes and very cheap things. So it's on purpose that when you get that thing in the mail that you're probably looking at something that's a good deal or inexpensive. But at the same time, you get something in the mail like from Blue Apron, and there's these beautiful pictures of meals that immediately make you hungry. And they use the space very well. And it feels feels different. It's a different perception. So it doesn't always have to go on the perception of expensive or inexpensive, but that's one of the easiest ways to explain it. So if you have questions about space, let me know. But like I said, this is one of the hardest things for a designer to wrap their head around, even a seasoned designer. But I would say in general, if you're DIYing your design, it's important just to maybe step away from what you're working on and come back to it and say, where could I add in a little bit more breathing room to this graphic? Because it's almost always possible. Sometimes it may mean eliminating a small piece of text that isn't necessary or putting one image instead of 4, but it is possible. So if you feel like you're just not happy with it, I always say take away and create more space, and you'll probably find that happy medium you're looking for. Okay, so the next one, number 4, we're going to talk about fonts. Ooh, fonts. So many people discount fonts as an unimportant aspect of their brand. So like, I don't know, just put a font on it, right? But I'm here to tell you that the use of fonts absolutely matters when it comes to the perception from your customers. Let's talk about why. So serif fonts, which are what I have here. If you don't know, serif is the Latin word for the little feet that are on. So if you look at the T or the top of the N or the bottom of the I, they're called little feet, but in obviously in Latin, it sounds a lot prettier and they call them serif fonts. So a serif font can carry a traditional connotation. So, but that's not always a bad thing because it can also create this feeling of steadfastness and importance. So they're established and trustworthy, which gives your viewers the idea that your brand is too. So serif fonts can be very important for a company to consider using. I actually am doing a rebrand right now where they sent me examples from their past designer. And what I felt was that they lost this this traditional feeling when they were going through. So we took it back to a serif font and it made a world of difference because what they do is something that you want to feel really like that you're picking somebody trustworthy. And this traditional connotation is exactly what hit the nail on the head for them. And it was just missing by a font choice. So that's what serif fonts do. Now let's talk about sans serif fonts. So going back to Latin, sans means without. So you're saying without the little feet. So sans serif fonts typically come across as modern. They can also mean that you're clean and simple, but still approachable. They can sometimes tell your audience that you're casual, informal, and friendly. So they're again thinking about what message are you wanting to convey to your potential customers, and is a sans serif font right for you? Now, you'll often see, and I do this in my designs a lot, a combination of fonts, but it is important to pick which one is the most important. Which one's the primary and which one's the secondary? So if you have light coming in, distracted. So if you're trying to decide, I like a serif font and a sans serif font, can I use them together? You absolutely can, but one needs to be more important than the other in the designs that you're working on. Okay, so the next category is a script font. So script fonts are usually on the fancier side. They're intended to provoke ideas of femininity, elegance, and creativity. And there's often also an issue of readability in a script font, which should be taken into consideration. So I was trying to come up with the best way to say this, but maybe I'm not going to say any ages, but if your audience is primarily bifocal wearers, and you see a lot of this when they're looking at your information that you're handing them, a script font may not be the best choice for you because you're not going to get maximum readability out of a script font. The other thing to keep in mind with script fonts is that typically you want to put a few words, a headline, a singular word in a script font, but you do not ever, never, not ever, want to put a whole paragraph into a script font. And the reason there is that no one can read it, to be really honest. Even if it's a very well-designed script font, it's like reading somebody's handwriting, you know? There's just only so far readability will take you in that instance. So script fonts are great. Okay, and the last category is display fonts. So what does that mean? A display font is terminology that is used to describe a fun or a decorative font, but be very cautious when using these types of fonts because they can often give the feeling that you're trendy or not serious as a business. I know a lot of people will scroll through the font list and pick the one that looks different or pretty to them, to their eyes. But keep in mind that design is subjective. And a lot of these fonts, like what I have here on the screen, these display fonts, they just kind of feel like you're a fly by the night type of company, that you're not really serious enough. It's like the difference between going to like the cheap little trendy clothing store in the mall versus going to a nice department store that carries nice brands. So I would just say be very cautious. If you're not sure that a display font fits your business, I would say walk away from it and don't use one. So as you can see, the font that you choose for your business, and not just branding, but the secondary fonts that you're using in your designs on websites, brochures, social media graphics, they're important to not just make your designs look pretty, but they actually have this underlying message that you're putting out to your potential customers to absorb. So it's important that you pick the ones that convey the correct message for your business. One other thing to keep in mind is that simplicity is always best when it comes to font choices. If you're like, everybody uses Lato or Open Sans, so I should use something different because I want to be unique. Fonts are not your time to pick to be unique. Just trust me, be unique with icons or illustrations or photography or something else, but fonts are not your place to pick to be unique. Go with something that's steadfast and true, that has maximum readability, something that's recognizable to a lot of people. Okay, another comment here. Let's see. Most newspapers were printed in serif fonts for decades because studies proved that a human eye can cover the lower half of a word and still correctly guess and read the words. The serif feet help our brain read faster. I have heard that before, Stacy, and I actually did one of those like little test things that comes up on Facebook sometimes where it's actually asking you, can you read this phrase only seeing the lower half of the letters? And I totally could. So yeah, that's really interesting about newspapers. I knew that a lot of things were printed with that in mind, but I didn't know newspapers specifically. So I definitely agree with the right serif font. You get maximum readability in those ways. One thing to keep in mind with serif fonts is that they've changed a lot. Now we have slab serifs and modern serifs and a lot of different things, which kind of negate some of those old school rules that a lot of printers used to go by, because now even the way that a serif font is put together has changed a bit. So if you're going to use a serif font, maybe use one that's been around for a while. That's a good rule of thumb. Okay, so the last category that we're going to talk about, and as I said, I'm going to stick around for Q&A, but also feel free to post any sort of questions that you have in the comments at any time, and I'll jump over there now and answer them. Okay, so the last category here is hierarchy. So hierarchy is so important. This is, I'm going to say, one of the first things that they try to teach us in design school, but it's one of the hardest to grasp, just like space. So according to good old Wikipedia, a hierarchy is an arrangement of items in which the items are represented as being above, below, or at the same level as one another, right? So above, below, or on equal ground. Why is this important to your brand? So I believe that relationship between business and consumer, right? We're all in this relationship, this push and pull between business and consumer. The business owner should always be the guide. That's my firm belief, right? We shouldn't be sitting back at the end of the day going, well, my customers never told me that they wanted that. It's your job to ask the questions and to lead them enough through a journey to figure out that they do want that, right? So it's your job and it's your responsibility to lead these customers through a journey. Sorry, I got lost in my notes. From potential buyer to interested party to lifelong customer, right? That's the goal at the end of the day, is that we want to create these lifelong lovers of your brand. And that happens through consistency, but that also happens through hierarchy, so that we're actually telling them, this is the most important to least important things that I need you to pay attention to. You have seconds to grab somebody's attention online, right? You only have a few minutes to really tell them what it is that you're doing, and to get them on board to either say, yes, I want to make a decision right now, or no, I'm not quite ready to make a decision, but I still want to stay engaged with your business. So what does this look like in real life, right? So I put together a couple of examples for you here. So you have, on the left, there's no hierarchy here. And on the right, you have something that has a clear designated hierarchy. So we use hierarchy in your brand to do this, to lead your customers through this journey. You first need to determine what's the most important to the least important aspects of what you're putting out, then display them that way. Now, this may also mean that you need to cut down some fluff, right? I think sometimes as producers, we get a little bit worked up about, I have to say everything. I have to tell them everything. And when you're working on your own things, it's even harder to decipher the things that are actually important to tell someone. So it may mean that you're going back through and saying, "Ooh, scratch this, take this picture out, remove this, it's not necessary." And this is what helps to create space and hierarchy. So this could happen in the wording that you're using, where you're cutting out unnecessary words, and it can also happen in the design elements. So I love to say, just because you have a picture doesn't mean you should use it. So same thing with anything else. I was just talking to a business owner the other day that had like 15 taglines written up for one of the products that they're selling. And they were trying to work all 15 into their marketing message, into their landing page. And you guys, it just doesn't work that way. You have to be the one to say, this is important, I need you to pay attention to it, but this thing over here is still important enough to make the cut, but it's not important enough to grab your attention. So obviously on the left here, you have an example that has no hierarchy. All of these lines are carrying equal weight, very similar spacing. So it really just says, hey, you got to read this whole thing, right? It feels like an essay or something that, like a dictionary, something that you need to read the whole page in order to really grasp what we're doing here. But on the version on the right, you can see there are bigger pieces of, I'm going to envision this as a website layout. So there's maybe a headline and then a paragraph below it, and there's a picture and an icon. So actually the biggest thing that your mind should pay attention to in this is either what's in the pink box or what's in the cream colored box. You can kind of flip back and forth with those, but it's really important that you're taking these steps in order to say, hey, I need to tell my customers about this new product or about this new program, or really clarify what I am putting out. And clarification really comes in when you pay attention to hierarchy. So I had a professor in college that used to say, well, why don't you just go ahead and make it big and bold and red? And let's just throw in an underline for good measure. So she was being sarcastic, of course, but the point of this is that you don't need all of those elements in order to get your point across. Less is really more when it comes to a great visual language, and making sure that what you're putting out in the world really resonates with your potential customers. So that's my top 5 elements that I feel carry great value when it comes to the visual language behind your brand. I hope that these concepts either help you to create better DIY designs or help you to be able to work with a professional designer, marketing expert, to be able to lead them through what it is that you're really looking for. I have a lot of people that book discovery calls with me, and they'll say, well, I've never hired someone like you because I just wasn't sure what I wanted. So I'm hoping that if that's you, if you're in that boat, that maybe this would give you at least enough of an idea to help kind of define a style so that you would feel comfortable either diving in and doing it yourself or working with someone. So I always love to remind people that there is a reason why not everything that I do is just as fast as a click of a button. Yeah, the implementation of designing a business card may not actually take that long, but as you can see, there's a lot of thought process behind the scenes that make your work really go to the next level, to be honest. So if you're stuck in the beginning stages of your brand or a rebrand or a refresh, or you're trying to figure out what am I actually saying at the end of the day, we brought back a thing that I had put out last year and canceled because of COVID, because obviously there's cost involved with some of these things. And a lot of people asked me for it, so I brought it back. So this is the brand style quiz. It's a really fun quiz. You can go to my website. There's a pop-up right there that will lead you right to it. And it really helps you to narrow down the overall tone and the message that your brand should be putting out into the world. So I've had several people even take it this week since we re-released it. And I've gotten amazing feedback that now they really feel that there is a style that they could either follow, and the PDF guides really help you to pick fonts, colors. There's a mood board in there. There are buzzwords to help make sure that you're conveying the right message. But also it's something great that you could take to either your designer that you're working with, or if you're working with your friends, cousins, brothers, sister, then you can take that to them too and say, I was having trouble explaining what it was that I was looking for, but now here's a great resource that I think really hones in on what my brand style is. So that being said, I'm going to cancel my screen share here. Okay. I am totally open for Q&A. I didn't put this together as a very long presentation today because, one, I didn't want to overwhelm you, but also, it's pretty outside and we all have things to do too, but I am here for some Q&A. So if you have any questions, go ahead and pop them in the comments. I know I'm on Zoom, so I'm on a little bit of a delay, but yeah, pop them in the comments for me and I will get those answered for you. Another thing that I really wanted to remind you of while we're kind of waiting to see if any questions come in is that the units tab in the group, which I honestly think Facebook just renamed and I can't remember the new name, but there's an area of the group that you can go find all the past trainings. I've done sales funnel challenges. I've done other branding presentations. I've had guest speakers in talking about everything from, the Enneagram to web SEO. So it's if you're looking for a great resource and you're newer to the group, a couple of things, that units area in the group, there's some great videos. There's some amazing information that you could tap into at any time and do at your own pace. Also, don't feel like if you're going back and watching one of those videos that you no longer have me as a resource because we're not live. I answer questions on comments on those posts all the time. So if you're watching it and a question pops up, just type in the comments and ask me the question and I'll go back and answer that for you. And it may spur another topic that we need to talk about, which is always great. The other great resources on my website, I have a lot of downloads, everything from making a customer avatar to 100 social media post topics you could pull from, to even how to set those values, those guiding values for your brand. So if you're looking for great resources and you're newer to the group, we may not always do a great job of saying like, hey, check this out, remember this challenge, but they're there for you. Definitely go scroll back in the post or check out some of those tags and tabs on the Facebook group. And there's some really great information there for you. So, okay, looks like I haven't had any questions roll in yet, but as I mentioned, I'm always in the comments. So I'm going to go ahead and jump off here. And if a question pops up, I don't care if it's later tonight or 5 days from now, if a question pops up, you can always leave a comment or make a post at any time in the group. Like we have a rule about not selling unless it's a designated post for that, but you can post a question anytime. If you're looking for a resource, a recommendation, or feedback on something, myself and a lot of the people that I know that are in the group would love to jump in and help you with that thing. So we're really trying to create this community over competition mindset. And that really starts with all of us kind of working together. So a few fun things coming up for April that I wanted to touch on. Well, one, in March, I'm doing April content right now, so my mind's already in April. But at the end of March, we're having Tim Preby on for a peek behind the scenes of his business. And you guys loved him so much during the SEO talk that I thought it would be really great to get some more information from him and a little bit of insight on the two businesses that he runs. And in April, we're going to be releasing, me and a friend of mine, I'll go ahead and say Mandy Briggs, we are going to be releasing a really great 30-day challenge for you. So if you have some business owner friends that aren't in the group yet, this is a great time to add them so they can kind of get their feet wet and then dive into that challenge with us. And then I decided to switch up our networking event for April, and we're going to do it at coffee hour instead of cocktail hour. So we're going to do it mid-morning so that some of the people who can't jump on at this time of day can join us and network and get to know each other a little bit. So that's all the announcements that I have for you, but thank you so much, Kathy. Oh, great. I'm so glad you enjoyed this information. So thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you soon.